Perfect. So, welcome. I'm Anissa Lewis. I'm a positive parenting coach, and I am passionate about helping you to raise happy and confident children no matter what is going on for you. Today, you are here to listen to a clinic, my month one part of my monthly series of free talks, and this one is all about boundaries, which is a slight twist on a behavior clinic that I normally deliver. So I thought, oh, boundaries are actually quite an important thing. And if we don't have boundaries, sometimes the behavior is an issue as a result. So I thought, actually, let's just take a step back and do one on that. So when I send you the replay of this, you will also get a link to my YouTube channel, which has got all of my past clinics on it if you wanted to go and binge watch some techniques and tips for helping you. It's all there for you. Obviously, you do not have to. And I have got some fresh ones, fresh clinics and fresh topics coming up over the next couple of months, which you are welcome to book into as many as you would like. Okay, so we have had a bit of an explore on what comes up for you when you think of the word boundaries. So my background is teaching and education. If I was still in the classroom now, I would have been 25 plus years of working with families and young people. My career, I decided to take a bit of a turn about 9 years ago. In fact, my business is 9 years old this month because I resigned from my deputy head job, my head of operations. I was working down south. And I just decided I wanted to work with parents. I wanted to work with children. I wanted to have a greater limit that I could, a greater access and greater influence, that's the word I was looking for, than I could when I was working in the classroom. But my deputy head role was very much about pastoral stuff. It was about I had the complaints, all the parents who weren't getting on well at school or weren't happy. That was my department. So I found out that I was working with a lot of similar themes, and I wanted to go in and work with families to support you with that. I think it's also important for you to know that I have a daughter. I'm a mum myself, so my daughter is 17 now. So I have navigated the toddlers. I've got myself through the tween years, and now we are firmly in the teenage itis. And yeah, and so I notice on some of the questionnaires that you filled in, we've got some parents of neurodiverse children on the call. So my daughter is autistic. We're also going down a CAMS route for some eating food related things. And she's also dyslexic. So I think it's safe to say that I have walked the walk with you if that is something that you are going through, as well as just my role within the classrooms and working with children. So let's have a think about this. Boundaries for me are all of those things that you mentioned. They are safety, they are limits, they are guiding behavior, absolutely and completely. But I think a really nice picture that we can put in our minds is, when you drive on hills or cliff roads and things like that, you have those guardrails on one side to stop you veering off the cliff and obviously something terrible happening. And I think that's what boundaries are for me within your families. They are the guidelines that keep you in place, but you are still very much in control of that vehicle, or still very much steering at the steering wheel of your family. But without those guide rails, the potential for something to go off or something to happen is quite large. And so let's just think about what guardrails we can put in our families in order that they can have a really positive impact for what's going on for you. Just a quick caveat before I keep going. When we're bringing about change within our families, it takes time. And the things I'm going to say today is very much a top level view, and you will go away and you will find something that you really like or something that resonates for you, but it is top level. And it's here to fill up your toolkit. It's here to give you ideas. It's here for, depending on the age of your children, some things might be more appropriate than others. So fill up that toolkit, keep it there, because you never quite know when you need to bring something else out in order to use it. So let's have a think about why boundaries matter. For me, again, someone mentioned it in the chat, it's about safety and security for our children. When they know the limits, they know where they stand. They know what they're allowed to do. They know how they're allowed to act. They know that there is a boundary in place and possibly even a consequence if that boundary is gone over. But with that, it brings safety and security. And I often say it doesn't matter whether your boundaries are as skinny as a lamppost or wide as a football field. Do your children know what those boundaries are. Um, we're going to talk about this in a minute, but are you consistent with them? And I think that's a real big one. Are you consistent with your boundaries? I think in the spirit of being an Australian, you probably hear from my accent. I live up in West Yorkshire in a lovely town called Ilkley, and I know we have some Ilkley parents on today. But Australians are known for being quite laid back to the point of being horizontal sometimes. But that does not help our parenting, because when we have too much freedom, that can cause overwhelm for our kids because they don't know where the guidelines are. They don't know where those guide rails are. And therefore, that safety and security, that foundation is not in place. And it's questions such as, if you are being too flexible and the overwhelm is there for your child, you may be seeing behavioral issues, you may be seeing pushback, but ultimately it's your child saying, who's in charge here? I don't get it. I don't feel safe. So I'm going to try and put in some my own boundaries in order that I can feel safe and secure. So have a just think about that when you were reflecting on your parenting style. Boundaries bring about respect for self, respect for others. Boundaries teach patience, which I think is one of these things that when we're in this instant gratification society, it's really difficult to teach something like patience. Boundaries teach responsibility, because actually they have to be responsible. They have to work within the framework that has been put in place. And I think it also helps to build resilience. And resilience is kind of a buzzword for all the right reasons. You know, we want our children to be resilient. We want them to bounce back from failures. We want them to bounce back from setbacks, and putting in place boundaries is something that will help that. So what I would like is in the chat box, and if you're listening to this on the replay, you're very welcome to ping me an email if you've got some thoughts on this question. But I would like to know, what happens in your house when you loosen boundaries, such as perhaps boundaries around bedtime or boundaries around screen time. So what happens in your house when you loosen boundaries? Do you get the reaction you're looking for? Do things erupt? Do you get more pushback? Do you get toddler tantrums? What happens in your house when you loosen boundaries, when you're not consistent with what you say you're going to do? So pop your thoughts in the chat box. Likewise, if you are tuning in from a school today, if you're tuning in from a corporation, because I know I have lots of organizations who share my work and join in, how does that reflect in your environments as well? It's not just about family life. How does boundaries help you in your work context or in schools? Okay, so so the question was, what happens when you loosen boundaries? And we've got, I get more pushback. This person's son deregulates and gets very, very upset. They get even looser next time. Yes, they do. They keep asking for more. You get more emotional outbursts. Okay, they take things even further. Just one more episode, Dad. Oh yeah, I've heard that. And obviously I'm not a dad, but yeah, one more episode. Ends up eating the wrong kind of food because there is some boundaries in place around food in that family. Pushback and bad attitude, tantrums. Yeah, absolutely and completely. So let's explore now what makes a healthy boundary. So healthy boundaries are clear and simple. Your children should not have to understand War and Peace in order to be able to understand the boundaries that you have in place in your house. So if they are too complicated, no one is going to follow the boundaries, and you're not setting yourself up for success. And I love setting people up for success. That's, I talk about that more than anything. How can you set your kids up for success? So, clear and simple, we don't hit in our house. I quite like to frame things in the positive, so they're hearing a reinforcement of what we do want rather than what we don't want. But at the end of the day, if hitting, pushing, and striking you is an issue in your house, the boundary is we don't hurt other people, or we use our hands and our feet for kindness, or whatever works for the age appropriateness of your family. Consistent. We've talked about consistency. If you are not consistent, there is very much about, if you think about traffic lights, and the red light goes on, and you just think, oh, today I'm not going to stop at a red light. Why am I going to do that? That's what it's like in your families. You've set a boundary, you've put it in place, and then you're saying, well, actually, the amber light might be better for this one. Red lights are there for a reason. They keep us safe, they keep the limits, we keep consistency in place. So think about red lights, not as in flashing ones, but just red lights and traffic lights when you are tired. And you know what, we do get tired as parents, and when we've been pushed and pushed and pushed with our children when we're trying to respect boundaries. But think about consistency in that red light. Age appropriate. Now, I think this one's really, really interesting, because if you have toddlers, and many of us on this call do have toddlers, your boundaries need to be different to if you have a tween or a teen. So toddlers' boundaries are very, very much with safety in mind, and also helping to nurture and mold them into the human being that we really want them to be. So you are going to have some more concrete limits around your boundaries if you have younger children. I would say even to 5 and 6 year olds, there's going to be more concrete boundaries in place. You know, you hold my hand when we cross the road. That is a boundary that keeps them safe. When you have teens, your boundaries may have to be talked about. You may have to get the buy-in of your teenager or your tween. It may have to be negotiated. You might have to put forward what you feel is an appropriate boundary, and then you might have to be prepared to discuss that and come up with potentially a new boundary that works from both sides. Because if you do not have the buy-in of your older children, I say we're talking sort of end of primary, going into secondary school, and then off they go into university life. If you don't have their buy-in, boundaries are really, really difficult to put in place. I think they need to be predictable as well. You know, so you're not just throwing out something on a whim that you've thought about in that moment, or you thought, oh, just listen to a really good talk by Anissa and she's told me to do this, and oof, in it comes a new one. Let's make them predictable for your children. And how can you deliver your boundaries with warmth? Now, this is a really weird one, because I want you to look at how you can go in with warmth and calm, rather than shouting and demands and things that put your kids' backs up. Because even a toddler is going to get the hump when you don't present it in quite the right way, that they feel that they are being controlled. And control is a big thing when it comes to boundaries. No one likes to feel controlled. They like to feel that they've got a choice within what's going on in your family. Again, age appropriate. So in the chat box, let me know who here feels that your children know what their boundaries are, or what your boundaries are, or what the family's boundaries are, yet they still push back. In fact, you don't need to put it into the chat box. Find an emoji and let me know. So your kids know what your boundaries are, yet they're still really, really happy to push against them. Let me know and tell me how you feel about that. Always love it. Yep, absolutely. Yep, someone's got the giggles going on. They're like, yep, that's why I'm here. Okay, so let's explore that one. Just a quick, again, I love going off on tangents, but this is actually part of what I wanted to say today. Rules versus boundaries. A rule is very much top down. You're doing it because I said so. Well, why should I clean up my teeth? Because I said you had to. Why should I go to bed? Because I said so. It doesn't create warmth. It doesn't create connection. It's not a good place to start for communication. Obviously, if your child is in danger, then that is an absolute appropriate response, and you get your child out of danger, and then you move into the nurturing side. A boundary is about a limit. Here's the limit. Here's why we have the limit in place. And here's your choice within the limit. So an example of that could be phones go on recharge in the kitchen at 8 o'clock in the evening, but the child doesn't want to do that. So we're going, well, the boundary is that we all put our phones on charge in the kitchen at 8 o'clock. Why do we do that? Because actually it's good for our sleep. It's good for us to have some communication within our family. It sets us up for, lots of many things. The choice is you can either put it on at 7:55 or 7:59 p.m., but we still put our phone on charge by 8 o'clock. So that is a boundary. There is the limit, there is the why we need to do it, and then there is a choice within it. Again, If you try to do that for absolutely everything within your family life, you're going to be exhausted by breakfast. So you sometimes have to pick your battles and you have to pick what you want to focus on in terms of boundaries. So kids thrive within the freedom of limits. They need the limits, they need the boundaries in order to feel safe so that they can thrive in your family home. So let's have a look at some practical tips and tools that you can use to put boundaries in place or some ideas around boundaries. So we've talked about the fact that consistency matters. In all honesty, again, if you can find the emoji function, which I think is on, oh, they're called React, let me know with an emoji if honestly, hand on heart, you are consistent with your boundaries and your rules and your limits within your home. Hand on heart. I know I'm not, and I've got a 17-year-old, and I talk about parenting pretty much every day of my life. And I know that I'm not always consistent with, okay, I love this. I love the emojis that are coming in. Okay, they're making my day. Okay, fab. So, consistency teaches reliability. Kids are thinking, you know what? If my mum or dad says no in this situation, that's what they mean. When we are like, oh, just one more program, oh, all for an easy life, oh, yeah, of course, just add the sweets to the food order, I just need to get out of here without you having a tantrum, that doesn't build consistency. Sometimes we have to go through a little bit of uncomfortableness in order to build the consistency. Another one here is more about you than about them. And it sort of leads on from that emotional reaction, the pushback that we get from our kids when we put the limit in place. So it's around stay calm and don't rise to their energy level or their emotional level. You actually have to role model to a certain extent. Now, inside, you might be that swan that's got their legs madly paddling under the water, or you might be feeling like the storm in the teacup. But on the outside, you are the picture of calm. You are reinforcing your boundaries. You are trying to talk in a calm voice, just again, because that brings everybody down to a different place than if you are shouting or if your energy is giving off something else and you're just rising towards the ceiling and no one's in a good place. So how can you, I was going to say, how can you calm their nervous system? Because that's what's going to happen. The nervous system is going to get on edge through how you respond or how you put limits in place. I'm always about connecting with your children before you have to correct them. It's all about how we can set our families up for success. So do you need to step in 3 steps before the boundary actually needs to be put in place? Do you need a little friendly reminder? This is going to happen if you keep going with this behavior. And you can do that with a 2-year-old. You can do it with a 17-year-old. Again, what you're doing there is you're giving them choice. If you keep going, this is where we're going to get to. So shall we pull back now and go in with some connection time, a cuddle, a walk around the block, whatever it is that your child needs in that moment, connection before you even get to the point of having to correct them and remind them of the boundary and remind them of the consequence. Offer choices. Choices are fabulous. Would you like the blue cup or the pink cup? Would you like me to pick you up at 11 o'clock at night, or would you like me to pick you up at 9 o'clock? Maybe not, but that don't do that with a 2-year-old. That one's for my 17-year-old. So but choices are powerful because again, you are putting the boundary in place, but you are giving them some control within the boundary that you have put in place. And I would say when you're giving them choices, your boundaries are probably quite limited. And then other options where they don't need to have a choice, you can stretch your boundary out. I love natural consequences. So this is probably more talking about school-age children. However, it does work for toddlers. If they don't want to put their coat on and want to go out when it's absolutely freezing cold, let them. Obviously, take the coat with you so that when they do get cold, they can put it on, but actually let them, because that's part of the learning process. If they don't want to do their homework, and obviously, as long as they've got no learning needs or additional needs that we need to take into account, if it is a choice for them not to do their homework, then let them not do their homework and let the school manage it. Let the school be the natural consequence rather than you having to be the natural consequence in that place. You don't have to control everything for your kids. Sometimes that lovely process of a natural consequence is power in itself. And I mentioned it before, but you are going to have to adapt your boundaries over time. You will. When they're toddlers, they need different thing to tweens that need different thing to their teenagers. Be prepared to revisit and talk about these things with your kids, because as soon as you get their buy-in, as soon as you get their thoughts, it's powerful. Powerful is what I'm going to say to you. Okay, so again, back to chat box. So what is the hardest area in your family or your house to keep consistent boundaries in place? So what is the hardest thing within your home, your family, where you really feel that it's really hard to keep the boundaries in place? Okay, so we've got screen time, we've got food. Oh, interesting. Okay. Co-parenting, yeah, absolutely. It's different in different households. Well, I wasn't going to cover that one, but what I will say is it's okay to have boundaries in your house that aren't reinforced in your ex-partner's house. Um, yeah, it's also I grew up doing this. This is my passion. This is what I do in life. My husband's a policeman. We parent in very, very different ways, and that's okay. It's okay to reinforce your own boundaries for your family. Bedtimes, snacks, short on time, like when those morning rushes and things like that. Gaming, yep, screen time, TV. So screens, food, bedtime, definitely biscuits. Excellent. I love that one. Fab. Okay, so we mentioned pushback a bit earlier. Pushback is normal. Pushback is to be expected when you are putting boundaries in place. But as I said, if you cave too soon, you're not teaching the right boundary. Emotional change cycles are you're going to come in on a skateboard into this thinking, I've just had a wonderful talk on boundaries. What am I going to do? I'm going to put in place something. I'm taking on board something Anissa said. You come down into the valley of despair. I kind of like to call it a pit because a valley is too big. Let's just stick around in a pit for a little bit. And you're on your skateboard and you're trying and it's not quite working. But instead of tweaking it, re-looking at it, thinking about it, being curious about it, you just reverse back out the way you came on your skateboard. What I want you to do is sit there in that pit for a little bit longer than is comfortable. And it might require pushback from your child because they're trying to see where that limit is that they can push you before you'll go, oh, just have another snack. Oh God, just playing your game for an extra half an hour. I need the peace and quiet. What I want you to do is to sit in that, feel the uncomfortableness, tweak, adapt so that you can come out the other side having got that boundary in place and feeling really, really good about it, both your kids and you. So all I'm going to say here is hold steady. Pushback is normal. Oh my goodness. Right. I'm rushing. I promise I've got to the end nearly. So I'm not going to dive into food and screen time and things like that with boundaries. What I will probably do is put some videos out on or some reels out on my socials, answering some of those specific boundary questions or trying to formulate some bits and pieces for you. So do look out for that. If you don't follow me on socials, I am Anissa Lewis. Positive parenting pretty much across the board. So do drop by and have a look there. So as we are rushing towards the end, I just want you to think about boundaries being love in action. I love this. Boundaries are love in action. It's okay to have boundaries for your family. It's okay for your boundaries to be different to another family's boundaries or to your ex-partner's boundaries or to the rest of it. But you have to clearly communicate them so that your child is not guessing what the boundaries are. I would also say it's really important to have boundaries in place around certain things like sleep, safety, possibly screens, maybe food. You will know what is right for you and your family to keep what boundaries you need to put in place. But I would say to you, pick 3 to 5 boundaries that you really want to be consistent on rather than trying to do everything and then feeling like you're failing, because I'm not setting up for failing and I'm certainly not about guilt. We've got enough of that going on. But you're setting yourself up for success if you think, actually, this week, I'm just going to focus on getting that bedtime working properly, whether that's bringing it forward, whether that's just trying to get your tween into a bedtime routine. Do it, get it working, and then bring in the next boundary that you want to put in place. Rome wasn't built in a day, so just be kind to yourself, be kind to your families. What I will also say is imperfect is okay as well. Like you're thinking, well, I really want to get to this point with my boundary, but we are here. And that's okay. There is no such thing as perfect in parenting. So actually being perfectly imperfect is the way we want. And that comes through consistency. And consistency is clear and simple boundaries that work for your family. And keep that phrase in mind. How can I connect with my child so I don't have to correct them later on? So I'm going to stop there because it is exactly on 12:30. I would love you to share in the chat box maybe one of your takeaways for today, something that maybe has been an aha moment or just put back up onto your priority list for you with your families around boundaries. You will be sent the replay, so if you do want to re-listen to it, you're absolutely welcome. If you are listening to the replay, hello, you can message me at hello@anisalewis.com and let me know some of your takeaways. I would love to hear from you even. And you are so welcome to share the recording with anybody you feel might benefit from it or might want to hear it. Possibly sending it to a co-parenting parent may not be the way forward, but you can be the judge of that one. So let's have a look and see what your takeaways were. Oh, hang on. Oh gosh, we've got lots of lovely takeaways. So calm their nervous system absolutely and completely. When they're in their primitive brain, you're going to get nothing out of them. We need them back in their thinking brain, and that comes through calming the nervous system, which may be counterintuitive of how you need to treat your child to how you actually think you need to treat your child. Sit through the discomfort, absolutely and completely. But be curious when you're in the discomfort. Don't just keep knocking on the same door with the same set of things if it's not quite working. You may need to tweak it slightly, and you may need to change it slightly, or you may need to come at it from a different angle. But absolutely, sitting in the discomfort is important. To put in place the phrase "in our house we," love that. Natural consequences. Negotiating. Does that mean we are not going to negotiate? We're going to up our negotiation? Whoever popped that one in there, maybe I need a bit more detail. Consequences elsewhere. Like if they don't do their homework, absolutely let the system that's in place to deal with that deal with that. We don't do that feels inclusive and negotiations. So fab. So thank you so much for joining me today. You will get the replay. I am running these clinics over the next couple of months, and you are welcome to join as many as you like. If something has piqued your interest and you think, actually, I want to have a dive deeper into this and see what Anisa can do to help me, book in for a free call and let's see what I can do to help. I work with schools, corporates, I do one-to-one coaching, and I even work with children. So thank you for your time. I have gone a couple of minutes over, so I'm grateful, but have a super rest of your day, and I hope our paths cross again in the not too distant future.